Hi there, I'm James Dapperchi, and this is Coffee and a Case Note. Team, today we're going to talk about a partnership that is operated by two siblings, and the two siblings came into that partnership after receiving a gift from their parents. So let's just skip back into the timeline a little bit. So a number of decades ago, we've got our siblings' parents who have bought a piece of land, who've planted a citrus farm, and who are operating a reasonably successful business on the citrus farm itself. And I'll ask you to keep the word citrus farm, and we're going to have another phrase, nearby farm, come into the discussion in a couple of moments. But we've got the citrus farm operating, and we have one of the siblings today who's going to be our defendant, who is an elder sibling. They are applying a lot of their time and effort as a young person, working very, very hard on their parents' farm for very little pay. And what happens after about a decade of work is the parents say in the early 1990s to today's defendant or the elder sibling, what they say is, hey look, let's carve out this little bit of the farm. We're going to refer to it as the lot. Let's carve out the lot out of the citrus farm, and that can be yours, right? You can build your family home on there. That'll be yours, even though it'll be part of the broader citrus farm. There's your bit in there. Thanks so much for all the work you've been doing over the years. And what is suggested in the evidence is that the elder sibling, or the defendant in this claim, had the option of the option provided to them by their parents to either accept the lot, as we describe it, or to choose an alternative nearby location as a gift to accept, as a family home gift to accept from the parents. Time passes. The parents then go to assist today's plaintiff. The plaintiff is someone who also operates in the parents' citrus farm business, working hard away. And the plaintiff goes and purchases a nearby farm. And the plaintiff has considerable help from their parents in relation to the nearby farm. That help is the parents going guarantor on the farm, and the parents funding the deposit from the farm, I suppose, and again, the plaintiff today, the new owner of the nearby farm, continues to live on the parents' homestead in the citrus farm and gets a rental income from the newly purchased nearby farm. So we've got time ticking over, we've got plaintiff and defendant. These people are siblings working away in the parents' citrus business. The parents' citrus business relies on fruit from the citrus farm, and it also relies on fruit, thank you very much, fruit from the nearby farm as well. And so all this fruit is being collected and sold for the benefit of the partnership. Now, when I use the word partnership just then, I'll ask you to accept me withdrawing it and just use the word business there, broadly speaking. We come to 2001. In 2001, the siblings, or the parties' parents, resolve that they are going to give two things to the siblings. They are going to give the business to the siblings, and they are going to give the citrus farm to the siblings. And the conditions of that gift essentially are they're saying, hey, we worked our whole lives, slaved away building this citrus farm business on this citrus farm. We don't want it, quote, quote, broken up. We want to give it in a way that ensures it stays together. So this gift is made. And if we can keep the chronology in mind, because it's going to become relevant a little bit later, about 2001 or so, the gift of the land and the business is made. And it is only later that the plaintiff and defendant, that our two siblings, enter into a partnership to operate the citrus farming business that they've received, right? So land comes into their hands first, partnership comes second. I'll just ask you to bear that 1-2 punch in mind as we make our way through the facts. Now, time passes. The parents make their mutual wills that acknowledges, hey, we've given away this land, we've given away this farm. And so that's recorded in their sort of expression of testamentary intentions in their wills there. Time passes. Sadly, as you might imagine from the fact they're in a fairly expensive piece of litigation, the relationship between plaintiff sibling, the younger sibling, and defendant sibling, the older sibling, disintegrates over time. And there are various demands made where plaintiff sibling will come and say, where's my share of the profits? Defendant sibling will be unsuccessful in attempting to get plaintiff to engage in the citrus farming business the way that they would like. And the short point is the relationship is not what it was, and over time, as the plaintiff stops allowing access to the defendant to the fruit on the nearby farm as opposed to the citrus farm, then the plaintiff begins to receive less money. Then there's an altercation in early 2022. The police are called, an AVO is issued. From that time, as you might imagine, the plaintiff receives no further money from the defendant, who's sort of operating the citrus farming business, and does no further work for the citrus farming business. So essentially, we have the partnership coming to an effective end on or around that date, but we'll just use that concept loosely, because we're going to have to come to specifically what happens at the end of the partnership as we make our way through the facts. So what we have in dispute today is, when did the partnership end? What are the partnership assets? Because the plaintiff is coming today to say, look, this partnership's come to an end on a certain date, and so the time has come for my sibling and I to divide up the partnership assets and for us to take them in our proportions as partners, the sorts of things that happen on the dissolution of a partnership, right? Plaintiff says the time has come, great. So what are the partnership assets? One of the things the plaintiff has come to court to do is to seek a declaration that the citrus farm, including the lot, is a partnership asset. Now, do you remember when we were speaking earlier that the lot was purportedly a gift from the parents to defendant older sibling to say, that's your house, you can either take a house off-site somewhere else, or you can take this house on-site for us to acknowledge all the hard work you've been doing for the citrus farm business over the years. Well, plaintiff sibling, younger sibling, attempts to challenge that by seeking a declaration, by seeking to have the court declare, no, that farm is in fact property of the partnership. And why does the plaintiff sibling, why does the younger sibling care? Well, of course, the younger sibling is one of the partners, and if the lot is part of the partnership assets, then it's part of the assets to be shared between the siblings, right? Doesn't all just go straight to older sibling. Younger sibling would say, well, I'll take half of that too. And so there's the obvious appeal of that. Now, the court has to work through a number of evidentiary points, and the short point is the court is not convinced on what it has before it to say, well, yeah, okay, the lot was a partnership asset. Instead, the court says there's not enough evidence here to convince us that the lot was a partnership asset. And in addition, there are tax treatments and accounting treatments that both the plaintiff and the defendant have agreed to over the years that show the list of partnership assets to not include the lot. So explicitly, plaintiff and defendant agreeing that despite the fact they are registered proprietors, they are written down as the owners of this land, the land is not a partnership asset. One of the ways that we can help in understanding that is, do you remember before that the parents made the gift of the land before the partnership started, right? So the land became owned by plaintiff and defendant before the partnership even existed. And so that means it was in their hands before the partnership. There was no transaction pointed to where the land came out of the hands of the brothers in their own, the siblings in their own capacity, and went into the hands of the siblings in their capacity as partners. The partnership money, there was no money paid or borrowed or anything like that for the partnership in order to buy the property. And so the court was reasonably satisfied that it was not partnership property. There was another evidentiary wrinkle. The plaintiff was the executor of mum and dad's estate. And that estate included, of course, all the files that the parents would have been entitled to, and that includes the files in relation to the preparation of mum and dad's will. Now, the advice given by the lawyers in relation to the parents' wills was privileged, and what the plaintiff said was, well, I'm the executor of the estate, the privilege is mine, I want to waive privilege in that, I want to see the advice and rely on it in this case. What the court said was, well, on the face of it, as the executor, you're entitled to waive that privilege, but that is not a waiver you are exercising for the benefit of the estate or for the benefit of the beneficiaries, and so we're not going to grant you access to those documents. And so what we have is the court coming to the conclusion that, all right, this partnership was dissolved on or around the date the AVO was issued, from around that time when defendant sibling stopped paying money to plaintiff sibling, and from about the time that plaintiff sibling stopped doing work for the partnership. That's the date that the dissolution, we're going to name for it, And does the lot, remember that bit of the citrus farm, fall into the partnership assets? No, is the short point. Nor does the farm itself fall into the partnership assets at all. But what we nonetheless have is the making of a Woodson order in the alternative to what we sometimes call a Section 66G order. That is, that the court will require that the plaintiff, the defendant brother, the older brother, must buy out the plaintiff brother, the younger brother, for fair value of their share of the citrus farm. And if that sale fails to go through, then there might be a judicial sale to follow that. A little bit complex today. Thanks for bearing with me through it. And I look forward to joining you again soon for another coffee and in respect of another case note. Cheers.